Islam is known for its decorative motifs, so I want to go through some of the basics here with you. First of all, there are three generally accepted motifs that we will see most commonly. I'll get into a couple of others, and calligraphy I deal with in another video. But they are calligraphy, geometric, and arabesque. So, the geometric is going to be the most basic. The geometric designs in Islamic art are generally built on combinations. What they're doing is they're developing the basic form and then they build it out from there, usually in repeating patterns, sometimes using tessellations or other more intricate forms. And all of these are examples of that geometric form. As we break them down, you see that they're always interlocking in some way. They're always repeating in some way. They're going to be fairly complex forms. Remember, Islam is aniconic, so you really can't use a lot of human and animal forms, at least in religious context where you see an awful lot of the tile work. We also see plant forms. This is not one of the major forms, but it will lead us to the next one. And here we will see plants being used, stylized, to develop a pattern. This is very similar to the acanthus and other vinework patterns that we've seen in the past. Almost every society will come up with something based on plant life. And here we see an example in a rug where we see flowers, the stems of the flowers running around that central medallion. And this is a rug that we'll deal with later on in this playlist. Then we have the arabesque. And this is a design of curved lines and interwoven elements. Frequently, in an arabesque, you will see the plant form being applied to it. So, the plant form is a more basic form that informs the arabesque. When you look at it, you tend to have something symmetrical, but the pattern seems to be infinite. And we see patterns like this. And when I show you something like this, it should remind you of Celtic knotwork or so many other traditions that we see throughout various Western and non-Western societies. And for many of the same reasons, they're looking at the interconnectedness of life. If you remove things from one area, usually you throw off a balance in some way, and that comes out in an arabesque, in a Celtic knotwork, in any of these forms. Now, an arabesque actually starts with a very simple form. You can start with a diamond or a grid. In this case, you start with a simple spiral. And then you develop off of that, creating patterns that will repeat throughout. And it's actually fairly simple. It's just a matter of how many steps do you add, how many new spirals, how many decorative ends and leaves and other material. Then we have figural images, and these are much more rare. Now, throughout the class, throughout this playlist, I've told you Islam is aniconic, which it is. But, under certain traditions and certain circumstances, they can use the human figure. Figural images are simply motifs and images that use the human form. Pretty straightforward. Now, their tradition to get around the issue of idolatry, which is why they're aniconic in the first place, is to create human images that are always very stylized and very two-dimensional. There is no attempt at creating modeling or three-dimensionality like we might expect in Western art of the Renaissance or the classical world. This is all based on their theology. It's all based on their belief system. So it's not that they can't, it's simply that they've chosen to go in a different direction. Now, many of the systems that we see, arabesque, calligraphy, geometric, will be mixed in different places. For example, here we see elements of arabesque, we see elements of plant life, we see elements of geometric. I could complicate this further and find an example with calligraphy as well, but you get the idea. They're frequently mixing these forms to create something that to the Western modern eye in the 21st century looks very busy. But to them, it fits their aesthetic, their idea of style.